Forget the romanticized corn and beans. Native Americans faced the honest reality of nature, creating resourceful survival dishes that would educate us today. But these foods were essential rituals full of nutrients and stories. Imagine yourself lost in the woods, learning from those who thrived. Here are 22 real facts with historical sources. Subscribe and comment which one inspired you the most. Number 1. Clay-baked eels. Long before the first settlers set foot in North America, the Algonquin tribes of the Northeast had already mastered a technique that sounds like it came straight out of a modern cooking show. They would catch river eels, wrap them in wet clay, and toss them right into the fire. The clay would harden and turn into a kind of natural oven. When they cracked the shell open, the meat came out, cooked in its own steam, tender and smoky. It was a perfect method for the region's brutal winters. But the detail most people don't know is that some of those eels could deliver electric shocks. And even so, in certain rituals, the natives ate the meat raw. The question is, how did they figure out it was safe to eat something that could electrocute a grown man? No one knows for sure. Number 2. Stink bugs as protein. Long before supermarkets and paved roads, the Miwok of California had already figured out a problem that still challenges scientists today: how to get protein from somewhere no one would ever think of. They gathered stink bugs by the thousands. Those insects that give off a horrible smell when they feel threatened. The process was straightforward. Stones heated in the fire worked as a natural grill. The heat got rid of the chemical responsible for the stink and turned the bugs into a crunchy, nutritious food. But here's the detail most people don't know. Young warriors would swallow a few while they were still alive before battles. The belief was that the insect's defensive venom would pass into the warrior's body, making him unappealing to enemies. During droughts, when game disappeared and rivers dried up, those insects became the difference between surviving or not. Number 3. Larvae stew. Several tribes in California, including the Yokuts, developed a diet centered on acorns that went way beyond what we imagine. They ground acorns into flour. But when those acorns rotted and attracted larvae, nothing went to waste. The larvae were collected and cooked along with acorn flour in a stew that fed whole families during the hardest months of winter. The know-how of which larvae to use and how to prepare them was passed down from generation to generation, usually by the oldest women in the tribe. But the detail most people don't know is that some of these larvae were also swallowed alive as a way to treat internal problems in the body. To them, that was medicine. Number 4. Ritual blood in corn broth. The Hopi, who have lived in the American Southwest for more than 1,000 years, developed a recipe most of us can't even picture. They mixed fresh blood from hunted animals with boiled corn, making a thick, dark broth. But here's the detail that changes everything. This wasn't just food. After a hunt, the tribe's spiritual leader would lead the preparation as part of a renewal ritual. The belief was straightforward. The blood carried the animal's life force. And by drinking that broth while it was still hot, that energy would pass to whoever drank it and also to the land. It was a way to make sure the next corn harvest came in strong. In an arid region where every year counted, wasting any part of the animal would have been unthinkable. Number 5. Ant broth. Long before any pharmacy existed, the Puma already had their own medicine walking on the desert ground. Ants. That's right. They collected ants straight from the nests, toasted them on a hot stone, and then boiled everything into a broth with local herbs. It sounds strange, but it had a very practical purpose. The broth provided concentrated nutrients that helped them make it through long walks under an unforgiving sun. Now, here's the part that catches people off guard. When someone was in severe pain and had no other option nearby, they would chew the ants while they were still alive. The insect's bite released formic acid right in the mouth, working like a natural anesthetic. Resourceful maybe, but it worked. And in the desert, what works is what keeps you on your feet. Number 6. A possum for spiritual protection. Before supermarkets and refrigeration, the Cherokee and other tribes in the eastern U.S. had to use absolutely everything the forest offered, and that included the opossum. The animal was boiled whole with juniper berries, which worked as an old trick to neutralize that smell everyone knows all too well. But here's the part most people don't know. The glands that produce the odor weren't thrown away. On the contrary, they were eaten on purpose. The belief was that taking in the most potent part of the animal gave the warrior spiritual protection, as if that strong smell could signal away hostile spirits. It was a kind of logic that made sense in their world where nothing was wasted and everything carried a meaning beyond just a meal. Number 7. Night alligator hunt. Long before Florida became a retirement destination, the Seminole already knew how to handle those treacherous swamps, and their menu included something most of us would avoid at all costs: alligator. The hunting method was just as calculated as it sounds. When it got dark, warriors went into the swamps with lit torches. The light drew the alligators in, and they came straight toward the fire. In that moment, the hunter had to move fast because even a second of hesitation meant getting dragged under the water. The meat was roasted right away or dried in the sun to last for weeks. The Seminole believed eating alligator passed the animal's strength to whoever ate it. And here's the remarkable detail. This nighttime hunt was a bravery ritual, not just survival. Number 8. Bear ritual feast. On the Great Plains, the Lakota had a relationship with the bear that went way beyond hunting. When a warrior brought one of these animals down, what happened next would surprise anyone. The whole clan gathered because every part of the bear had a specific purpose. The heart went to the most experienced hunter. The fat was shared among the families. The internal organs were eaten right there, still warm, some with no cooking at all. And here's the part that catches everyone off guard. The bear's brain was eaten raw. The Lakota believed doing that passed the animal's intelligence and strength to whoever ate it. It wasn't just food. It was a ritual that defined hierarchy and respect within the group. Number 9. Medicinal beaver tail. Before the Europeans arrived, the Ojibwe had already figured out something most people wouldn't expect. A beaver's tail wasn't leftover meat. It was considered one of the most valuable parts of the animal. During the brutal winters of the Great Lakes, hunters cut holes in the ice to catch beavers in frozen dams. The tails, covered in a thick layer of fat, were slowly smoked over low fires until they had a steak-like texture. But here's the surprising detail. The oil rendered from that fat had another use. The Ojibwe put it on skin burns as a medicinal treatment. A single animal provided food, high-calorie energy to handle below-zero temperatures, and even worked like a portable first aid kit. Number 10. Mesquite tree larvae. Long before supermarkets and paved roads, the Tohono O'odham had mastered one of the harshest landscapes in North America, the Southwest Desert. And here's the detail most people don't know. One of their most reliable energy sources was larvae taken from mesquite trees. This wasn't desperation. It was a survival strategy refined over centuries. They dug into the trunks, pulled out the larvae, and grilled them directly over coals or ground them down into a nutrient-rich powder. On days of extreme scarcity, they would even eat hundreds of them raw to get protein immediately. While European colonizers starved crossing these same lands, these people had already solved the problem generations earlier. Number 11. Fermented salmon heads. This isn't an urban legend. The Yupik in Alaska really did bury salmon heads in pits lined with leaves and let nature do the work. Weeks later, they dug up a creamy mash with a smell so strong it could attract polar bears from miles away. Sounds crazy, right? But there was a nutritional reason behind it. In the Arctic winter, where temperatures can hit 50 below zero, fruits and vegetables simply don't exist. This fermentation created nutrients the human body desperately needs to avoid scurvy, the disease that killed thousands of European sailors. The Yupik solved that problem centuries before modern medicine understood why. Food that stank like hell but kept whole communities alive. Number 12. Washed acorn porridge. For centuries, tribes like the Miwok in California relied on a food most people would toss without a second thought: oak acorns. The problem is that eating acorns without preparing them the right way can be dangerous. They contain enough tannins to cause nausea, mental confusion, and even hallucinations. The Miwok developed a time-consuming process of grinding them and repeatedly washing them with water to remove those toxins. The result was a thick gray porridge that didn't impress anyone with how it looked. But during severe droughts, when game disappeared and rivers dried up, that porridge was literally the line between surviving and vanishing. Whole tribes stayed alive on that recipe for generations. Number 13. Raw meat to prevent scurvy. When the temperature drops to 40 below zero in the Arctic, cooking isn't just hard. It's a luxury that can cost you your life. The Inuit understood that thousands of years ago. They ate seal and caribou meat and organs completely raw, often still warm from a freshly killed animal. And here's the surprising detail. This practice wasn't primitive. It was pure science. Raw liver provided enough vitamin C to prevent scurvy, the same disease that wiped out well-equipped European sailors. While white explorers died with rotting gums and teeth falling out, the Inuit survived by eating what any Western doctor would call unconventional. The risk was real, of course. Parasites were a real threat. But between freezing to death from hunger or risking an infection, the choice was obvious. Number 14. Milkweed. Food or poison? Milkweed is a plant that almost everyone in the United States has seen on the side of the road without paying much attention. But for nations like the Iroquois in the Northeast, it was real food. In the spring when the young shoots showed up, women would go out to gather those still tender stalks. The detail is that raw milkweed is poisonous. That white liquid that comes out when you snap the stem can knock down a grown man with violent vomiting. So preparing it required a strict process of boiling it multiple times, changing the water each time to get rid of the toxins. After that, the shoots tasted like asparagus and were one of the first fresh meals after months of winter. A tiny margin of error separated safe from deadly. Number 15. Fiddleheads and modern risk. Did you know Eastern tribes like the Mohegan ate fern shoots? These shoots, called fiddleheads, sprout curled up on the forest floor in damp woods. Gatherers had to know the exact right time to pick them because the window was short. Then they boiled everything into a stew that served as fuel before big hunts. But here's the detail most people don't know. Modern studies found that these shoots, when eaten raw, contained substances that caused cancer in lab animals. In other words, cooking wasn't just tradition. It was protection. Number 16. Clover. Soup and cyanide. You've probably stepped on clover thousands of times in your yard without thinking twice. But for tribes like the Chippewa up north, that little plant could mean the difference between life and death. When winter hit hard and game disappeared, mothers would go out picking clover from the fields to make soup. It sounds simple, but there was a detail most people don't know. Raw clover can release cyanide in the body. That's right, poison. If you got the boiling time wrong, the same plant that saved your family could kill everyone. These women learned the exact cooking point in real life to eliminate the toxin. No manual, no lab. Just knowledge passed from mother to daughter, generation after generation. It was pure applied chemistry. Number 17. Purslane. Water and omega-3s. This plant you probably pull out of your garden every summer and toss in the trash was one of the most valuable foods for the Navajo in the Southwest desert. Purslane grew wild among rocks and sand, and the natives knew exactly when to harvest it. They chewed the thick, fleshy leaves raw, which held water inside like little natural reservoirs. In the desert's brutal heat, that simple salad could mean the difference between surviving or dehydrating. The detail that really gets people is this. Today's science confirms purslane has more omega-3 than any other leafy vegetable ever tested. Even so, when European settlers arrived, they labeled the plant as a poisonous weed and banned people from eating it in several settlements. Number 18. Acorn coffee. Long before coffee ever made it to America, tribes like the Yokuts in California already had their own drink to wake up the body and sharpen the mind. The main ingredient was oak acorns, roasted and ground into a powder that was mixed with hot water. It sounds simple, but here's the detail most people don't know. Raw acorns contain tannins, a substance so bitter it can make you really sick. That's why the preparation took whole days of washing and processing to remove the toxin before drinking it. Warriors drank this mix before long journeys or confrontations, looking for a natural state of alertness with no caffeine involved. It was knowledge that demanded patience and precision, where one mistake could cost you your life. Number 19. Witch hazel, healing and visions. Native peoples in the eastern United States figured out something modern medicine only confirmed centuries later. Witch hazel, a common plant in the forests along the Atlantic coast, was boiled and turned into a tea that healers used to treat everything from battle wounds to serious intestinal problems. The process was simple. Leaves and bark went straight into boiling water inside closed tents, where the steam was also part of the treatment. But here's the detail most people don't know. If the dose went too far, the tea caused intense hallucinations. Some healers used that on purpose in ceremonial rituals. Today, witch hazel extract is in drugstore products you've probably bought without knowing where it came from. Number 20. Swamp-harvested tuckahoe. The Powhatan of Virginia relied on a root called tuckahoe, found at the bottom of swamps. The gathering process was risky because the ground could swallow a person if they stepped in the wrong spot. But what makes this story really interesting is this. If you put a raw piece in your mouth, it caused such an intense burning feeling that it seemed like poison. The native people figured out that cooking it for hours removed this toxin, turning something dangerous into an essential source of energy to survive the winters. With no supermarkets, no roads, these tribes had mastered a kind of food science that many modern scientists only understood centuries later. Pure knowledge passed down from generation to generation. Number 21. Early harvest green corn. Long before the colonizers arrived, the Algonquian tribes of the East already had a custom that still surprises people today. They harvested corn before it was ripe and ate it while it was still green, sometimes raw, right off the cob. Women were responsible for deciding the exact moment to harvest, and they often pulled the ears weeks before the ideal time. The reason was practical. Waiting for the full crop meant risking losing everything to frost or pests. So they ate early as a way to make sure they survived. The problem is that raw green corn is extremely hard to digest. It caused severe cramps and inflammation in the stomach. They knew that. But between feeling sick and going hungry, the choice was obvious. Number 22. Bison. Broth and raw organs. When the Comanche brought down a bison on the Great Plains, nothing went to waste. The heart, liver, intestines, and stomach went straight into a stone pot heated with coals. The thick broth fed entire families, and every part of the animal was used with a kind of respect most of us will never understand. But here's a detail few people know. In times of war or extreme hunger, warriors ate the organ still raw, right off the carcass, because they knew that's where the highest concentration of nutrients was. It wasn't gross to them. It was pure strategic smarts passed down from generation to generation. To us, it feels like another world, but it was their everyday life. If that resonated with you, subscribe and stay tuned for the next ones.